Lifelong Democrat Diana Florence served for 25 years as a Manhattan prosecutor under DA Robert Morgenthau. She put criminals away and stood up for victims and protected our streets. Now, Diana is challenging failed Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg as an independent because it's time for a DA who fights for our families, not criminals. That's why Diana has won the support of organized labor, like the steam fitters, the plumbers, and ironworkers. Everyday New Yorkers who want a DA they can trust. Manhattan needs a DA who will do the job, prosecute crime. That's Diana Florence. Under Alvin Bragg, crime is up and prosecutions are down. Bragg doesn't prosecute, he plays partisan politics. Bragg failed to protect women and failed to protect workers. As a prosecutor, Diana Florence won groundbreaking convictions, fighting against corruption, domestic violence, wage theft, and deadly working conditions. She's always been a partner to unions, community groups, and to cops like us. For Manhattan District Attorney, vote for Diana Florence. You can visit www.diana4da.com. This is paid for by Diana Florence for Manhattan DA. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm Kevin Schroeder, your host. I'm with my co-host,
here are your hosts, Captain Ed
Today, we're brought to you by Diana Florence for Manhattan DA. Vote for independent Diana Florence for Manhattan DA. She'll prosecute crime and protect the families, not criminals. Vote Diana Florence for DA on the Safer Manhattan line. Okay, today's guest on Cop Talk is retired NYPD Sergeant Jack Cucci.
How are you, gentlemen?
Welcome, Jack.
Thank you for having me. How's it going?
Everything's going good. I'm sure much better where you are than when we are.
Yeah.
For now, anyway. So, Jack, why don't you tell everyone a little bit of your background, where you grew up, where you're from, where you went to school?
I grew up in Brooklyn, in Canarsie. Went to South Shore High School, went to LIU for college, worked on Wall Street, saw where, how there was no one was looking out for you on Wall Street. You pretty much, it's what have you done for me lately? And it's my experience. I was 5 years in. The guy who hired me wound up working for me. I had just sort of met who was my future wife. And I knew that, this wasn't a place for me. My neighbor, one time I was outside, had mentioned, Nick, why don't you just become a cop, a fireman, something like that. I sort of followed his advice and took the test, and it all began.
So when did you come on the job? What year?
I came on in 92. I went to housing, PSA 3, worked with some phenomenal officers, learned a lot from these guys. I went from housing, PSA 3. I got to go work in warrants in housing for a little while, got promoted, became a sergeant, went to the 7-0 precinct, did the normal patrol, anti-crime, was going up to the squad, and sort of got swept into the intelligence division when it sort of expanded. The captain mentioned before the old intel, new intel. I was new intel.
So you started in housing then, PSA 3?
Yeah.
What area is that? What does that cover in Brooklyn?
All Brooklyn North, 88, 79, 84, 83, 90.
Is that Brooklyn North or Brooklyn South?
Brooklyn North.
Brooklyn North. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where you started as a cop, and then the merge came, right?
The merge came. Yeah. I was still in housing, but it sort of expanded a lot for us. I mean, I got to go into warrants. That housing had modules then. Got to get into the warrant squad. I was in a bike unit, the original bike unit. I don't know if any of you guys remember that. Housing started a bike. It was more like an anti-crime team than sort of like how they have it now. I guess it's more like community policing oriented. But back in the day, it was like, we ran around and got guns. We did a lot.
Yeah.
It expanded. I got to into warrants. And from there, before I had enough time to be a detective, I wound up getting promoted to sergeant and wound up going into to the 7-0.
Captain.
7-0 was known as Fort Zunder, not Zunder. Fort. Had a very bad reputation. There was always a problem there. Did you remember that? You know,
they had a lot of death. You know, a lot of cops got hurt there, especially what happened. They had that big scandal. I came after, when after that. So you can imagine, when there was an arrest or something like that, everybody brought out the Amadou Diallo stuff and they went absolutely crazy. For every arrest, it was almost like rioting. So that was a little bit something to deal with and have to handle. Then when I became the crime sergeant, when you're really looking for the guns and weapons, and you're engaging with people on the street, that's all they wanted to talk about. And that's all you heard, all you dealt with, but we got through it. And like I said, I had such a great squad and some of the best people I got to work with, both in housing, the 7-0 precinct. 7-0 squad guys were phenomenal. And the intel people, those are some of the brightest detectives I really met there and bosses that I had the pleasure to.
What can you tell us about intel? What particular section did you work in?
Well, I
in the new intel.
I went in as an FIO, field intelligence officer, still connected to the 7-0 precinct, but soon enough, 9/11 hit. And basically then I went into a unit called a TIU. It was a terrorist interdiction unit. And we dealt with putting informants into, active cells in and around the city, outside the city as well. So it was some interesting work, something that I would never think, a housing cop would be involved with years later. But it was definitely a necessary evil. And I have to say, I'm very proud of the people, the detectives under me, the people I worked with, everyone. I think we stopped a lot of things from happening in New York City that no one will ever know about. Before I retired, I had to sign all these non-disclosure statements. I wouldn't talk about this, I wouldn't talk about that. But, it made me proud to know that, I was part of something that really, kind of saved the city from things that could have or might have happened. I retired because of, de Blasio came into office and I couldn't work. He was decimating all the heavy units. I think you were still on the job. You probably saw it happening. He came on, I think, 2000, no, you might have retired, right, Kevin? 2014, I think.
Yeah, I just retired right before he became mayor, right, and destroyed the city, yeah.
I mean, he had sent, attorneys into my office discussing, the type of investigations we were running and what we were doing. I knew that where this was going. He decimated, he got the street crime, the gang unit. I didn't know New York doesn't have gangs anymore. He got rid of them. Narcotics couldn't do regular B&B in the street. He sort of decimated everything. And it just went all bad from there. So I knew, you got to know when to leave the party. That was my time.
Yeah. No one to get off the ride, right?
Yeah. I got very lucky. I came from the Wall Street and that banking area, and I had I went to JP Morgan Chase for a few years. I was a manager there, got to run one of their money laundering, terrorist financing group. It was a lookup group of a different financing, and these guys would finance drugs or terrorism. And, there were small investigations, nothing like the police department or the intelligence division. But, it was fun. And then I wound up working, leaving there and going into back to security, contracting for the U.S. Marshals in the Eastern District in the Brooklyn Federal Court. And now, after a few years of doing that, I came here as well to Florida. I'm doing it here.
So just to rewind a bit, Jack.
Sure.
So I'm surprised you didn't work in financial crimes or anything regards to financial crime with NYPD.
Interesting enough, when I was in Intel, obviously in the beginning, everybody was looking to harm or blow things up. And the investigations broadened as the years went on, and they got into financial crimes. And that's how I dipped my toes into it through the intelligence division, working with Hyder and HIFCA and El Dorado Task Force and bringing them into some of these investigations. That's sort of how I got a little bit more, schooled in that type of investigation. And that's sort of how I got my foot in the door when I went to JP Morgan Chase.
And Jack, you were on the job in 9/11, correct?
Yes. Yeah, it was actually.
Why don't you tell me about your day?
I was actually going to the police academy for, I think, either homicide investigation course or the criminal investigation course. I remember the first, when the first plane hit the building, sort of, life stopped, everything stopped. By the time we all went to the roof and we were trying to see what was going on, we were starting to get bits and pieces of information. The second plane hit. And I think at that time we had beepers, we had Nextels, but I got a message that where we were going to muster down by the Trade Center. I wasn't thinking that everybody was coming from Brooklyn and I was already in Manhattan. And I remember going downstairs thinking I don't want to bring my car there. So I saw a squad car that was at the 13th and I asked them to drive me down. And as we're getting closer, I'm looking and I'm like, I can't have them here. I couldn't sit with them being off post, being here. These guys really wanted to be there. And I said, you got to go back to command and get, and wherever you need to be is where you have to go. And I started walking. I think I got to where we were mustering right on, it was right across the street from the Trade Center. And I remember there was no one there yet. There was a couple of guys. I think they were detectives. They were all in suits. I was in a suit because of the academy. Yeah. And I'm just about to say that this is like a crime scene. Nobody in and everybody out. And one of the detectives started screaming the buildings were coming down. And that was the most useless I've ever felt on the job. Just running for my life. And just seeing the people, because when I'm not looking behind me, I'm just watching the people as I'm saying, go, go, go. Their faces, I just thought any minute I was getting leveled, any second. And I remember cutting down one of the streets and sort of when the madness kind of stopped, I heard the planes after. I guess the jet planes were coming. And at that point, you don't know where they're coming from or who it is. I was like, well, that was it. I think I just sat on the curb and I said, well, if this is the fate, that's it. It's over. But they were our jets, whatever. And then every time by the time I mustered with the rest of the intel guys, it was sort of then when when we started realizing during the day, going to the different morgues and there was no bodies. There was nothing. There was nobody. And that was really, really disturbing.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure you registered with the 9/11 program.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, go. And you go for your checkups, I hope?
Every year. Okay.
Yeah. And they have a location in Florida, or do you have to come up this way?
I think I'm going to come back up when I have to go. It's sometime in May. So I'll probably take a ride up there. I think I feel more comfortable. Right. I kind of know the people. I've been going for so many years. It just makes it easier.
Right. Captain?
Instead of starting over.
All right. What about your life after the police department? Let's hear about that.
Well, okay. I did work in banking for a little while. Then I went back and contracted with the Marshal Service doing security for the federal courthouse. And at that time, I met some intel guys that I used to work with. Eric Kovo and Sean Leahy, who was one of the detectives in one of the units I worked in. That's the time. During that time, we were sitting around. It was during the Summer of Love, when there was the anti-police movements, and it was just COVID. It just couldn't get any worse. We were sort of sitting in the break room in the federal courthouse, and a commercial came on with Black Rifle Coffee. They're a military-owned coffee company, and they had a racing car. And I remember Eric saying that we should do this for police. And I thought it was a good idea. Some of the guys, they're laughing, But he was serious. He was pretty dead serious. And the interesting thing about it is, like, a couple of weeks later, he goes, and takes a trip, and he goes to Colombia, and he finds out. He starts learning about coffee and finding out about coffee. And he comes back, and he's really excited, and he talks to us about it. And, and I was like, yeah, it's a great idea. Now you know about coffee. We need a charity, or else, a reputable charity to give to, because that's what we wanted to do. And another guy, Johnny Perazzo, hooked us up with Merritt Riley from NYPD with Arms Wide Open, and they were gracious to us, and were happy to have us, like, be part of them. And then we sort of, took our time, learned a little bit more. We met a roaster who was right in Brooklyn North, right sort of about 10 minutes from the courthouse. Couldn't get any better than that. And then they decided that they would blend our coffee. And that's sort of how it transpired. We started becoming Pour the Finest. This is our little coffee bag here. Everything that we've so far made, most of the proceeds we donate back to With Arms Wide Open. And we give to anyone else, like if the Columbia Association, has an event, they want a coffee basket to raffle, or any of the other associations, the Hispanic Society. A lot of them, over the course of time, knowing about us and seeing our Instagram or our Facebook pages, they reach out. We donate baskets for them so that they could raffle off, make money for their cause. That's really what this coffee company is about, really, to help other cops. But With Arms Wide Open, they're 100% for police families with special needs children. Right. It's close to our hearts. My partner, Eric Kovo, had a special needs child, and they helped him tremendously. And that's sort of how it all transpired. Sean Leahy is my other partner. This is what we do. This is what it's about. We try to give back. Was the only way during that time period. And it's sort of been going, slowly but surely since then.
So Merritt Riley, you probably know him from Housing 3, or Brooklyn anyway, Housing, correct? Is that what you know, Merritt?
I think he was gone before I got there, but we sort of reconnected now with the charity.
Okay, so Merritt and I are very good friends. I just spoke to him this morning and told him that you'd be on a podcast today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Merritt and I were cops together in Midtown North Precinct. We also played on the Midtown North hockey team, Broadway Blues, and to this day we're very good friends. Now, I don't know if you're aware of it, but Stevie Van Zandt and myself have a fundraiser called Little Stevens Policeman's Ball. And every year we donate money to the widows and children of NYPD, but also for the past 10 years as well, to Merritt Riley's foundation, Merritt Riley and Danny Sprague, NYPD with Arms Wide Open. It's a great organization.
Fantastic.
Doing God's work, and we're so happy.
You guys invited the three of us. We had a table there. Merritt had invited us, and it was fantastic night.
The policeman's ball. The policeman's ball you're talking about, Jack?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Football. Yeah,
it's a great event, and God willing, we could do it again this year in December. But yeah, Merritt's good people and great foundation.
Every day there's something else that makes me feel good about coming down to Florida. It gives me another reason. And the biggest reason has to be that 24 years after 9/11, that the Democratic frontrunner is a communist socialist who was somewhat of a terrorist sympathizer.
Right.
I not understand how this can happen in New York City.
I agree.
It's liberal as it can get. This is who you would stand by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's bizarre to me. Bizarre. But who is the lesser of the evil? Is it Adams? Is it Curtis Lewa, who I think would have a fighting chance, but people don't look at him as a serious candidate. Yeah. Right. Then you got Cuomo.
Right.
And it's like we all know what he's about.
Right.
So it's like, what a sinking ship.
Right. Well, Cuomo ran as a Democrat. As you know, he lost the Democratic ticket to Mandami, so now he's running on an independent ticket. And the GOP nominee is Curtis Lewa. And it's funny, people say Curtis should drop out, but no, I don't think he should, because he's the GOP. He was nominated the GOP nominee, right? He's the nominee, the candidate for the GOP in New York City, 5 boroughs. and Mandami's a Democrat. Cuomo's running on the independent line. So, I don't think Curtis should be dropping out at all. We support Curtis here. We know him very well. And again, if you read the polls and believe in the polls, he doesn't have much of a shot. But we don't believe in the polls. We don't believe in what we read in the papers. And I think they're just trying to push that they're just trying to push all lies out there in regards to that where you think Curtis won't win, so why vote for him,
Well, it's like anything else. It's like how did the other our mayor that caused us to retire, right? How did they? People don't go out and vote because they're like they don't like the candidates, right? But what's the alternative? If you don't vote, you get what you asked for.
Right.
That's it. You get what you deserve. You have all these people that are supposedly backing this Democratic candidate. Meanwhile, Curtis Sliwa probably is the only one that actually cares for New York City.
Right.
He's been in the street since the 70s, trying to help and fight crime. And he might be eccentric, but he's the best candidate for the job.
Oh, yeah, I mean, he knows the city inside out. He knows crime. He's all about crime, supporting the police, supporting law enforcement. He gets it. And that's the bottom line. I think he'd be great for the city, but we'll see what happens. Everyone needs to get out and vote, and and then that's that. Don't believe the hype.
Is going to decimate the police department
and the city, but yes, for sure. Like you're talking about De Blasio pushing everybody out, and who wanted to work under him. Well, wait, if this guy Mandami was to win,
it's over.
It's over, and not good.
It's sad. It really is sad.
Now, if I was you, I'd be buying a lot of property in Florida and, just holding on to it just in case Mandami does win. Either way, you'll be able to sell it. But if he wins, you'll do well because everyone's going to be going south, either Texas or Nashville or Florida, South Carolina, It's
truly sad. Like, I never really thought, I didn't think I was going to leave, like, Brooklyn, and I wound up in Staten Island. It's like a progression of things, but never thought I was going to leave Staten Island or not like the really how New York has become. I feel like when we were on the job, there was a phenomenal time there of good policing and the city was safe. And now it's sort of back to where we started.
Right.
And that's like horrific.
True.
I feel bad for all these cops on the job now and who's coming on. And they always say, like, you only know your job for your job. And it's true. The guys who had more time than me knew the job their way. They're only going to know it this way, and that's fine. But what they're up against, you have the city council against them, politics against them. They've turned the people against them. The fake news and all the negativity. They don't have a leg to stand on. They sort of lost everything.
Right. No, true.
Work in those type of circumstances. I give them a lot of credit. But even the police department, you're going to see a change. You're going to see a different type of person taking that job. You talk to people who do recruitment. They don't want to say it, but they're not, you'd be surprised who they're bringing on to this job for the sake of filling shoes here. Right. So that's a problem too. That it's it should be quality, not quantity. They don't have anything. No,
I mean, when we came on the job, how many recruits were in your class?
I was the big class, that big 2,500, 5,000. That time, that 92, that was a big spurt of recruiting.
I came on in January of '85. We had 2,500 in my class, and classes before and prior, and after as well. And today, they're lucky if they have 500 kids in class. And 400 graduate, and then maybe 250 stay on. So it's a big difference, and there's a reason for that. They're not paying the cops how they should be paid, and they're not endorsing them and backing them up as they should be. City council shot, as you said, and Adams is on his way out, so we don't know who we're going to get now. One thing, at least with Adams, he did support the police, and he did give them a good raise, whether you're a fan or not. But at least he did do that for the NYPD. So, Jack, what's the name of your coffee company?
So the name of the coffee company is Pour the Finest.
Pour the Finest?
Okay. Pour the Finest.
There we go. Yeah. And how could, if anyone anyone in our audience would like to purchase a bag of coffee or have it shipped to them, how could they do that?
They can go online to pourthefinest.com. We're on Instagram, Pour the Finest. We're on Facebook. Yeah, and listen, everything that people, any coffee that people would buy, anything they buy, whether they buy a T-shirt or a mug or whatever, a good portion of the proceeds goes to a police charity, just like with Arms Wide Open. That's what we're here for. Everybody wants to give back in some way, some form. This was our way.
Great. That's great work. It's good to see, guys like yourself retire from the job but still giving back.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
So I'm not sure where my co-host went. I think he in with the bosses trying to renew his contract. I'm not sure. But on behalf of Captain Ed Mamet and myself, thank you for being a guest on Cop Talk. Everyone, retired Sergeant Jack Cucci, who's living the great life down south. And once again, pour for the finest.
Pour the finest.
Pour the finest. Sounds good. Okay, I'm going to talk to you after the show and maybe order a bag myself of coffee. I love coffee.
We'll work that out.
Absolutely. Sounds great. So, Jack, until next time, thank you very much for being a guest on our show. Everyone, if you like what you hear, you can follow us on Instagram at Cop Talk WBC. That's at Cop Talk WBC, all social media. And until next time, God bless you. God bless America. God bless the U.S. military. And God bless law enforcement throughout the world. Thank you. Be safe.
Bless. Ciao.
This is Cop Talk.